Welcome to the Doctors on Social Media podcast.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome to the Doctors on Social Media podcast. We call ourselves SoMeDocs for short. Here in this show, we bring you today's most interesting content and we dissect it together. SoMeDocs is looking to create unique buzz and excitement within the field of healthcare and to showcase the movers and shakers who are making a difference today. Our episodes are available in both visual recordings and audio format, so you can soak us up through whichever medium fits best. Don't forget to give us a shout out online or share what you love. Welcome to Social Dissections, where we take a standout social media post and we dissect it together. So today I am so excited because I have medical student Tyler Beauchamp here with me. Did I get it right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So first of all, I got it right. That's amazing. We are going to first, you know what? Why don't you in a sentence introduce yourself? And then after you're done, I'm going to show the reel that we're going to be focusing on.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'm Tyler. I'm a fourth year medical student graduating, going into pediatrics. I'm from Savannah, Georgia. And I have a little bit of a combination between the medical life and the creative life, which I'm sure we'll get into.
I love that. Great. That was a good pitch. Okay, so here is Tyler's reel that we are going to be focusing on. First of all, your reel is awesome. And do you want to know a secret? I always envisioned that I'd create a show just like Shark Tank with those of us who possess skills for content creation and advisory abilities to act like the sharks. I even once talked about it to someone in venture capital. And that was when I was first starting to really be good at content creation. So you did something really similar, except yours is super funny. So how did you come up with that idea?
Oh man, so I'm the only medical person in my whole extended family. So these last couple of years of med school, trying to explain to them a lot of not just medical topics, but medical education topics and how weird the world of med school and residency can be. I've definitely had to re-explain myself a few times. And when it comes to the match, that was just something for this past year, since I'm getting ready for the match, that's been hard for them to understand. As a lot of people, it's hard to understand, you don't just go interview at a hospital and then they tell you another career. And so I've had to come up with kind of creative ways of telling them. And I live with my grandfather right now, and he is, a couple generations back where he really does not understand this at all. And so I've used things like the sorority pitch. I joked that I was pitching a Shark Tank once, oh, this would be kind of funny to show others, because I'm sure there are other med students that felt the same way.
I love that. First of all, I love analogies and comparisons because they just honestly make things easier, right? You take something in pop culture that everybody knows and loves, and then you sort of fit it into the less ordinary and the part of our lives that others don't get.
Right. And he worked in banking a long time back. So the Shark Tank thing was something that he definitely understood.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so you literally took it to his level and you said, "Hey, Gramps, this is what I'm doing." So
Sure.
the next question actually is perfect because you compare the match to being a sorority with less glitter. So I really felt like the audience would want you to expand and explain just how it's exactly related.
Right. Okay. So for those that don't know what the match is, it's the process in which med students get selected for their residency positions for getting a job and training as a doctor. And the way it works is you get, hopefully, a good number of interviews. And at the end of your interview cycle, you rank them all from first preference all the way down to bottom. But hospitals do the exact same thing for all of their applicants for their programs. And on this magical day, the computer algorithm, tries to best align everybody's preferences in every field all at once, and everybody finds out in the same moment. And I've never been in a sorority, but I'm pretty sure bid day in sorority works pretty similarly.
I'm getting a little emotional because I'm thinking of my own match day, and it really was, an exciting and happy day. First of all, you took the thought out of my head because the next question was going to be to define the match for those people listening. So kudos for being so forward thinking. As you were talking, it also made me think of Tinder.
Oh yeah. So well, I tried to do a follow-up one, which I don't know if you saw, but I did like a couple versions of this. So like an attempt number 2 and attempt number 3. And the attempt number 2, I was pitching to my mom, and like she doesn't know much about Shark Tank, but she's a high school teacher, and so they're always talking about like dating apps and stuff too. And so I was like, oh, it's kind of like Hinge. You both try to like swipe on each other and see if you match.
Totally. That's my thought too. And again, I love that you are comparing it dependent on who the audience is. So, I could tell that you're a content creator because not everybody can do that. And clearly you're going to make a great resident because, we have to know how to speak to our audience and to our patients in medicine terms. I know already because I spoke to you before, but do you want to just tell the audience quickly what residency you're looking to match into?
Pediatrics.
I love that. Okay, very cool. I love generalists because I'm an internist, and someone recently, a family medicine doc who interviewed me on a podcast, said not to call it generalists, but I forgot the name, the reason and the name he said to call it. So apologies for whoever gets offended by generalists, but that's what we are. We're general. Okay. Please tell us about Grandpa. I mean, I already hear he's a roomie, or that you're his roomie. And he's clearly a cool dude because he's agreed to appear in your reels. But can we know a little bit more about Gramps?
Yeah, he's the best. We're really close. He is pretty much the reason I've been able to do anything in like my education with college and med school, and he's a big influence in my life. During med school, like maybe a month into COVID, both he and my grandmother both developed their own cancers, and so I was helping going to and from med school back home to help out with them. And then my school had an option for our clerkship years to do offsites rather than the home institution, and one of them happened to be in my hometown. So I was like, oh, okay, I can do clerkships with there, help out around. And when my grandmother passed, I thought, well, maybe if I can live with him before, that would kind of help with the transition. And since then, we've just kind of been living together until, fingers crossed I match, and I'll have to say goodbye. But I'm just looking over because he's over in the corner. Yeah, so we've been living together the last 2 years now because of that.
Okay, so now I'm emotional. So excuse me for a second because it hits home. And first of all, that is so freaking sweet. Also, when I was doing my medical school, and again, I date back to much, longer. I'm much older than you, but my husband and I studied medicine near my grandparents, and they aren't with us today, but they loved it. It really just was so impactful to them to have us around them while we were studying medicine. And in similar story, we just got really close to them, and they really, really appreciated us being a part of their lives, and vice versa. I will never forget it, obviously. So my condolences about your grandmother, but I love that you get to be there for your grandpa. And I'm sure that there's a mutual symbiosis, right, of benefits of living together. So, it's emotional and it's sad, but it's also super amazing, and it puts a smile on my face. So thank you for sharing that, and hi to Gramps. All right. So another question I have is that we have a student section opening soon on SoMeDocs. We wanted to know what year you're in, which I think you told us here that you're 4th year. And do you have experience with matching? If not, then maybe your fellow med students. I know you're interviewing for the match, and whatever you know about it, any advice that you can give on making the match process a great experience?
Sure. No, it's a great question. So I actually had to take a medical leave in between my third and fourth year. So the class that I came into, I went to their match day last year, which would have been my match day. So I actually got to see the match from like the other side of the curtain and, obviously helped out with them and heard their kind of pros and cons, how they're working on their match list throughout the season, which was a little difficult at times because like you want to be in the same boat as them. But I definitely learned a lot from it in terms of there's a lot of game theory that people talk about. Like maybe I should rank this person higher than this, even though I want them because I feel confident that this person would like me. And while, there's credence to a lot of that with every single specialty, I'm of the firm belief that you should really just rank where you want to go. Like you can make those kind of arguments all day long, but at the end of the day, like you should rank where you want to go most and just be honest about it. I know that it's different from specialty to specialty because some specialties are just far more competitive. There's fewer slots. And so getting, a set number of interviews means a lot more in a given specialty. I think I've been told that if you get 10 interviews, regardless of specialty, you've got like a 95% chance of matching. So that's kind of like the magic number med students think about. But yeah, in terms of things you can do to help out besides away rotations are really helpful things you can do. That's when you can do a rotation in your last year at different institutions away from your main school to check out a program, see if it's a good fit for you. If you know it's a good fit, maybe try to like impress them or get your name in the door a bit. So there's a lot of that too. But yeah, I'm of a firm believer to just be honest, rank how you feel, rank what feels right to you. And what puts one program over another, I think it really comes down to feel and the community that you're in. I think that a lot of programs training these days, since it's so standardized, it's really hard to find the differences in one program to another because they have to be doing a lot of the same things. So, how do you rank 4 or 5 programs that on paper are going to be similar training? It comes down to the community. You're going to be in the feel, the vibe of where you're going, I think is a huge, huge component.
Those were some really fantastic advice pieces and also resonates to me as a mother of a son that currently is in college and and another one that's coming up that's going to college and going through that college process. I actually felt similarly that when we go visit colleges, they're just the same. They're kind of like the little boxes, that you picture in like those communities where everything looks the same. So you have to really dig in deep and really figure out what is it about that college that makes you want to actually attend. So that is just some great advice. Thank you for that. Another question, what is one quality that you think helps make a student not only get into medical school, but also last within medical school?
Ooh, that's a great question. I was just talking about this with there's a peds GI doc out west that I've been working with. And we were kind of talking about the art of medicine, not like sometimes that's taught in med schools as like the humanity behind medicine or like the ethics, but we were talking about the logistics of being a doctor, like the things that aren't taught in medical school, like balancing your finances. How do you work with interdisciplinary medicine? Like, like if a problem comes up, that kind of stuff that's just not taught. And him and I said the same thing, that it hit us at the same moment with how difficult it is to get into med school these days. It's really hard for people to have a job in college while also doing all of the pre-med requirements. And it's really hard to have a job in med school if some schools like actually forbid it. So for a lot of people who become a resident doctor, they are a physician training. That's their first job ever. So they've never had the experience of working with coworkers or, a schedule of I don't even want to say 9 to 5 because they're residents. So it's probably 9 to 9. But, those kind of things that you learn about on the job. I think having a job of any kind at some point in your life before applying to med school is a huge bonus to you because you know that what you're looking for or what they're looking for at the end of the day is a colleague. And so someone who can they work next to for, 10 hours a day. You learn a lot about yourself when you have a job of any kind. I tell everybody, you should, if you can work in the service industry before med school, like that would be really awesome. I was a busboy, and then a waiter, and you learn a lot about people when you do that. But more like specifically to things that help with getting into med school and all. Uh, Being honest about what you're doing and doing things that you're passionate about are probably the two biggest things. There's things that they say you got to hit the check marks of research or the check marks of shadowing hours, or volunteer hours, and like all that, sure. But med school boards can see right through that in terms of if you're just hitting check boxes. If you do a few things that you're really, really passionate about and you can express that, like things that you can talk about in an interview that bring you life and things that you can maybe bring to a program that they don't have, that's how you get in, because everybody's doing the same other stuff. I certainly did not partake in research because I just didn't enjoy it in college. But I did a lot of interesting things in like the creative space, some very odd volunteer projects that I started that like I wanted to bring to med school. And when I had interviews, I talked about those things and they saw, oh, well, this is something we don't have. Maybe you could bring this here. Those are things I think are far more important than those checkbox lists that you hear a lot of. And then the things that make you stay in med school or help you be successful, patience, super adaptability in terms of like learning and taking the ego out of everything. The way that you study as a college student is almost like not translated to med school at all. It's a completely different animal. So you have to be okay scrapping everything that you thought of comfortable and becoming uncomfortable. I gave this talk a while back about like embracing the uncomfort of medicine, because like just if you just accept that your first year is going to be all these moments of I'm the one person that they let in by a mistake, that is actually going to do you a lot of good, because everyone feels that way. It's when you kind of have the ego around you of like, no, like I've got this, I don't need help, like I got here on my own, that kind of stuff that a lot of med students and even physicians later on can kind of hold on to. I certainly would not have been able to get through anything in med school without my core friends and now family that I made in med school. So those would probably be the biggest things that we can go more into.
Ooh, I love that. So much resonated with me. So much of what you said. I think we could build, 7 different podcasts just based on the things we talked about. But of most relevance is the fact that there are so many different aspects of today's world that are not covered in medical school, or that at least medical students and those hoping to be medical students just aren't exposed to. And that is actually the purpose of why I built the student section, because I figured somebody needs to bring this to student attention, especially the students that want to dabble in it. Because of course there's the medical school curriculum, and then there's, ventures like SoMeDocs, which is completely outside of medical school, but still run, with doctors within it, and has so much value, but is not constricted to that like social systems and all of the needs that they have in place. So love that answer. Okay. So
And
we're,
actually, if I
yeah,
can say one more
of
thing,
course.
I think it's important to say. I had an interview recently where they were asking about my resume for residencies, a little atypical because a lot of my projects are kind of weird and a melding of art and medicine. I am an author. I've written books in med school. One's being developed into a TV show. My research is like this mix of music and medicine and creating heart sounds. Like it's things that I think are really cool, but they're not exactly the things that you're told, like this is the path to do in med school to get to residency. And one person did ask, this is really great and all, but what exactly does this have to do with, clinical work? And I get what they're meaning by it, because they weren't even saying it in a bad way. They're just honestly wondering, like, how does this prepare you to be a doctor? And I said, I actually think these kind of things need to be stressed far more than they are, because what's the one thing the majority of patients can't connect to, and that's medicine. I mean, most people aren't in medicine as a patient. They have no connection to it whatsoever. But when we are forcing throughout training, both med school and residency, only think about medicine, only think about these things. I mean, it's no wonder when you get into a patient's room and you've got 15 seconds to make this huge establishment for them to give their most, intimate details of their life, that they don't feel comfortable doing that. But, if I see, I'm in pediatrics, if I see a kid reading a book, or if I see them like have a, music sticker on their book bag or something, that's the path I go. And we talk about that for a second. And then everything else it's different, because now it's not doctor patient. Now we're all just talking about what can we do for your health. So
I love that. I'm the same, a believer that art and medicine absolutely should be blended together. And I've been asked the exact same question, even many years ago when I started to build SoMeDocs, where, people can't always see the visions you have and can't always sort of see the relevance. And I actually remember even that my husband, who is a physician himself, right? But has a different personality and different perspective than I do, but said to me, what does this have to do with medicine? Even he did not understand what I was building and how the humanities field, and media, et cetera, can be connected. And yet here we are today. So love that. I'm glad that you had that to add. Okay. So we are coming to the section of the recording where, this is something that we're trying out. It's called the shout out wheel. I'm going to show you the directory that we have of doctors. And for fun, we are going to shout out a physician. And right now there's only the attending, the doctor directory, but there will be a student directory upcoming and we could do shout outs on those. But this is just for fun. So name a specialty. That's A.
Pediatrics.
Love it. I had a feeling that you were going to say that. I'm always excited to see what people say. And then name either a different specialty that's here, or name let's do either an outside exam room category or social media platform.
Oh, we got to do writer, right?
Yeah, I love that. Exactly. And we're going to have you back to talk about writers. And you know what? We can actually niche it down even more. Pick another either outside exam room category or a social media platform.
Okay, let's do speaker. I guess there's only one there, but
Yeah, so that's perfect. So let's do speaker. Okay, so the shout out, he's gonna love this. It's actually Robert Saul is an emeritus professor of pediatrics, and he he wrote a book, he's a speaker, he, writes all kinds of things, and for SoMeDocs. So we're going to tag him on this episode, and I'm going to let him know that he was shouted out. He will love this. I'm sure that he will touch base with you. Let's clear it all away and stop sharing. So thank you. That was the shout out section.
oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, hopefully exciting for others as it is for me. So the last thing I want to say is that I did some digging around, and honestly, Tyler's got amazing reels, really wonderful reels. I'm sure that he's going to grow really fast on social media. So we may need to have you back on the show to cover a separate reel with separate questions. We need to have you back on the show with a separate reel with separate questions, because I'm sure that we could talk for ages. So anything to say or any ask to leave us with before I ask for the audience to share this?
No, just thank you for having me. This was a blast. I definitely would love to come back and do this again. I had no idea that reel would turn into anything whatsoever. I really just did it spur of the moment with my Gramps. And so, I'm very appreciative that it resonated with med students the way that it's definitely resonated with my family over the last couple of years having that conversation. So thank you to everybody who has watched that.
And that was equivalent to an Oscar speech. I love it. So do soon to be Dr. Beauchamp, I hope I said that right, Tyler and I a favor. If you've enjoyed this recording, go to social media, tell everyone how excited you are and about how a medical student turned a reel into Shark Tank style and that you loved it and that you heard this great episode on SoMe Docs and tell them to listen too. So thank you again and goodbye.